Have you heard of religious naturalism? In Ursula Goodenough's book, The Sacred Depths of Nature, she explains the philosophical and theological approach that finds spiritual meaning in embracing a naturalistic worldview. Hi, it's Rod Milam from HEC Books. Welcome, and if you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel for more author interviews. Now, Ursula Goodenough will give us her take on religious naturalism. What is a religious naturalist?
A naturalist is someone who takes the natural world seriously, including all of our understandings of it, Big Bang onward, the whole Megea. And a religious naturalist not only takes that understanding to mind, but we say also takes it to heart and explores those understandings for their religious potential. So then we have to say, what is religious? And so for me, a religious orientation is one that takes a large account, a large understanding. And in this case, we're taking this large story, we're calling it everybody's story of the history of the universe, and then comes up with responses to them along three axes. One is what we call interpretive, so how do I interpret this story? What does this mean about the meaning of life? Why is there anything at all rather than nothing? Sort of philosophical, existential kinds of questions. Then the second is spiritual, which are sort of inward responses like gratitude, reverence, hope, joy. And then the third is moral or ethical, so these are outward responses to the story. What does the story tell me about how I should be and how I should treat other people and how I should be a social being?
Now, when you say a naturalist is somebody who takes the nature of things seriously, what do you mean by that?
First of all, that they don't deny it, that they agree that what these scientific understandings are revealing are truths about reality, and that they're interesting, and so that's what I mean by taking it to mind. So a naturalist, sometimes the term is just used for people with binoculars who go out and look at birds,
Right.
And that's okay. But I think most naturalists, even the bird people, are now, are understanding that the birds evolved, that they used to be dinosaurs, that there's a whole history behind being a bird that the naturalist is interested in, even as they're observing their behavior.
So are you one of the founders? I know you've been a longtime member of that association.
Yeah, we founded, we only founded it, in 2013 or 14, so it hasn't been going on that long. But I wrote the first edition of this book in 1998, and I used the term there, and people have been using it more and more.
Now, how did you come about that term? Because I think a lot of times people think of scientists like yourself and other people, and they'll see religion as necessarily two separate things, even though that might not have been true throughout history.
This is correct, and it has not been true throughout history, although in most cases the early scientists were also, Christian or Islamic or something. They were in a traditional religion. They weren't taking their understandings that they came up with through observation and experiment and having that be their story. They went to church on Sunday or the mosque. So this is different in that respect. And it's only really been possible in the last, I would say, 50 years, because until quite recently, there was physics, and then there was chemistry, and then there was biology, and they were all sort of, siloed in their own understandings. And the whole idea of bringing the whole thing together as one large story has only been possible in recent times.
And why are you using the term religious?
I think it's a great word. It means bringing together, ligating like a ligament, and it's a good word. So, and we have spiritual nested within religious, so we say that a religious person is a spiritual person. Some people don't like the word religious. They prefer spiritual. So people will say, I'm spiritual but not religious. And that's usually because they had, or often because they had an uncool encounter with religion, maybe went to parochial school where the nuns were nasty to them, or, there are all sorts of stories of people who had bad experiences in their religions of origin, and so they don't like the R word.
Do you think you have less fear of using that word, maybe because of your own background and your father's relationship?
It never freaked me out because I didn't grow up in a situation where I might have had an untoward encounter with a traditional religion. They were just sort of out there.
So you weren't one of the people who was running away from religion,
No.
but the whole idea of naturalist or religious naturalist is kind of new.
Yeah.
And you were writing the book. Was that kind of a founding text?
I just wrote it because it was in my head and I wanted to do it, but it has acquired that status, I would say.
You spent most of your professional life dealing with on the small scale,
Yes.
like below what we can see with our own human eyes. How would you describe that in the context of a religious naturalist, and as well, how did you describe what was going on a cellular level?
Well, I guess that probably the topic that's most central to most religions is death, and what happens after we die, and how to think about the fact that we die. And life on the planet now has two major kinds of critters. Some are single cells, and the most abundant of those are bacteria. And then some are multi-celled, and the ones that we think about the most are animals, but plants are the other major multi-cell group. And they work in different ways. The single-celled organisms are kind of one-man bands. They kind of have to do everything. The multicellular ones partition the job of being alive out into different kinds of cells that together collaborate to make the organism, so the liver or the lung or the brain or the leaf if you're a plant. The invention of death, if you will, is something that happened when multicellular animals and plants started to evolve, and they evolved such that there was a germ line in the ovaries and testes that was involved in the next generation. And then there was a somatic part, the body, that carried this germ line. If you want to have human kinds of lives, one of the things that made that possible is that the soma does die. And so we humans who are very distressed, grieve about death, wish that it weren't the case. I try to help them with that by saying that if it weren't for death, we wouldn't have minds that worried about death. So, you know, it's sort of it's ironic, but it's a trade-off.
Thanks again for joining us, and watch part 3 of the Ursula Goodenough interview, where she discusses the reaction of various audiences from religions all over the world to her philosophy of religious naturalism and her book, The Sacred Depths of Nature. You'll want to subscribe for new content and to be notified when it comes out. And if you like this video, please click the thumbs up button.